All right. We are live. What is going on, ladies and gentlefolk? We're back. Another post game primetime live stream here tonight. That was an ugly one. That was an ugly one, to say the least. I have a lot of thoughts that I want to share with you guys as far as how that game did go. But yeah, I mean, I was not I wasn't satisfied because, of course, I was cheated out of my sports bet, which I'm going to complain about a number of times throughout this live stream. But just not to mention how ugly of a game it was. I would not be happy with the performance of my team if I was a fan of either team. I thought they both played pretty putrid football. They both teams had their moments where they made a couple big plays, but to be quite honest with you, I would not be happy with with how my team looked tonight if I was either side of the ball between Philadelphia and Minnesota. As far as Minnesota goes, obviously they had their offensive line issues, so that was a concern. But they've turned the ball over now 7 times in the last 8 quarters, including what I think was the four or five fumbles tonight. One fumble was taken off due to an offside. They turned the ball over like crazy. And they still only lost by 6, impressively enough. But obviously, like I said, their offensive line looked terrible. Look at that. His pick was right. What was my pick? Oh, Philadelphia? Yeah, well, I took Jalen Hurts to throw for 200 yards. That's it. Just 200. And, of course, it misses, and I'm going to be complaining about it all stream. But, yes, thank you for popping in, Tom. It was right. I'm glad, but loses me money. Anyway, like I said, though, Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts specifically did not look good. I think Jalen Hurts, I'm kind of getting a Josh Allen losing Brian Dable vibe with Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson right now, ever since losing Shane Steichen. That's kind of what I feel like I'm watching. And the only difference is the Eagles are a team that is built to be able to take the pressure off of Jalen Hurts when necessary. And that's exactly what happened. The pressure was taken off Hurts. They just ran the ball at will, and the Vikings couldn't do anything about it. So fortunately enough for Hurts, they're able to come out on top despite what I thought was a very underwhelming performance from him. He had a ton of time in the pocket very often. There was that drive about halfway through the fourth quarter where they were in field goal range, and then he takes 2 sacks and knocks them out of field goal range, and that allowed Minnesota to get the ball back, and they go down and drive. They drive down, score a touchdown. And suddenly it is a 6-point game. It could have been a 9-point game, 2 scores had Jalen Hurts not taken those 2 sacks, but he did. He had 3 pass rushers coming at him. He ran right into them. It was not a good game from Jalen. He had Devontae Smith deep down the field. He underthrew him, which ended, the drive ended up resulting in just a field goal instead of a touchdown. There was a lot left to be desired from Jalen Hurts' performance, in my personal opinion. But the biggest thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the Eagles is, as much as they might have dominated in the trenches, specifically offensively, that what we saw from them in the end result was the exact reason why nobody plays that style of football anymore, because the Eagles quite literally had the ball for twice as long as Minnesota did. And as Justin says, if Justin Jefferson doesn't fumble right before the goal line, the Vikings probably win. So, that's exactly why why the NFL has evolved so much. It's no longer this 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of mindset. It's no longer this offensive scheme where, try and run for 200 yards every game, try and pound the ball down their throat and hold the ball and dominate possession. That's no longer how the NFL is played. And it's clearly outdated for a reason. It worked for Brian Johnson tonight and in that Philly offense, but this is not going to be how it works for the rest of their season. And I'm confident that the Eagles will get right. I'm confident that we'll get back to seeing Jalen Hurts and these receivers on the same page and churning down the field as they normally do. But tonight they got away with one because they played against a team that turned the ball over damn near 5 times. That's pretty much the biggest difference. I mean, Philadelphia was very, very fortunate to come out on top in this one. Yeah, I mean, and we see a guy in DeAndre Swift who could not hold the job for his life over in Detroit, and he comes to Philly, and he's all of a sudden a 150-yard rusher. That's just what happens when you go to Philadelphia. And for what it's worth, I know a lot of people think, I've heard a lot of NFL players and professional athletes say, the average athlete could never gain 1 yard rushing in the NFL. Like, have you ever heard someone ask, oh, do you think the average person can get 1 yard in the NFL? And the answer is typically no from that professional athlete. That is the biggest crock of shit. That is the biggest lie ever told. Because DeAndre Swift, probably almost every carry DeAndre Swift had tonight, I don't know the actual number, but he probably didn't get touched until he was 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage on at least half of those carries. So if you're going to try and tell me that the average human being couldn't gain 1 yard behind that Eagles offensive line against the Vikings, you are lying. I think I could have rushed for 50 yards tonight behind that Eagles offensive line, behind the Vikings, in front of the Vikings defensive front. They were so poor. The Vikings defensive front was so poor. And the couple of times they forced Jalen Hurts to pass, he looked brutal doing it. There was one busted coverage that Jalen Hurts took advantage of. Otherwise, he made a nice throw to A.J. Brown on the sideline, which got called back for a hold. The one deep ball to Devontae Smith he underthrew. This was not a good night from Jalen Hurts. That's the bottom line. I was unimpressed. I'm impressed, if you will, with their offensive line, but this is kind of what I expected in terms of their run game. I didn't expect 170. I didn't expect over 200 yards rushing, but I expected them to dominate in that manner. And then as far as Minnesota goes, they're kind of experiencing what the opposite of what they experienced last year. Every single time they were in a game like this every single week last season, and they came out on top. Now they're experiencing the inverse. They are experiencing what I like to call, and what a couple of my friends like to call, the laws of variance. Suddenly they're no longer on the winning side of these close games. Suddenly they're no longer getting the fortunate bounces or the fortunate breaks that end up putting them out on top when it comes down to the final buzzer. Tonight is a game where they probably end up being – tonight's a game where they would have been Philadelphia. If this was last year, they're Philadelphia. It's just like the break after break after break that Philly got to keep them in front. It's not there for them. Yeah, the golden horseshoe, it's not there. No, it's not. And I don't know if you saw the number, if anybody saw the number, but Philadelphia or Minnesota in the first 3 quarters last year had in total of every first 3 quarters that they've played in each game last season, I think they had a negative 84, negative 87 point differential in every. How do I explain this? I think you probably get what I mean, right? They added up the point differential that the Vikings had in the first 3 quarters of every game last season. Their point differential was negative 84, negative 87. Then they did it then they added up the point differential for the Vikings last season in the 4th quarter and overtime, and it was plus 84 or plus 87 or whatever the stat was. I'm going to see if I can find it. But the Vikings were the epitome of, is that even a word? What's epitome? Can someone, they were the gold standard of the golden horseshoe. We'll put it that way. And this season, they're just not experiencing it. They're just not experiencing it the same way. Biggest issue is Vikings line on both ends. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Vikings aren't winning this game. If the Vikings, you're not winning a game, period, if you're going to be throwing or if you're going to be giving up the ball as much as they did. Here's the statistic I'm looking for. They gave the ball away way too often. That was really the biggest downfall. The Justin Jefferson touchback, stupid rule, but still a fumble. The fumble on the punt return, that would have set them up in good field position. That ends up being Philadelphia ball. There were a couple more that I just can't recall, but the fumbles were huge. Oh, Kirk Cousins strip sack. And all of a sudden the Eagles are set up on the Vikings 6 or 7 yard line or wherever they were, very close to the end zone. It just, they shot themselves in the foot in a way. Other ways they really couldn't control much. Christian Darrisaw was playing through an injury. He tried his best, but he was obviously struggling out there. They lost their backup guard, I think, Ohua or something. I don't remember what his name was. And that's sending Questenberry. He stepped in. Garrett Bradbury, I believe, is their starting center's name. He was down, so they couldn't run up the middle. I remember early on in the game, Kirk tried to run a stretch with Madison to the outside, and I think Kirk got stepped on by his own offensive line and fell down because they got pushed back so fast and so easily. This game was it was one in the trenches, and it was just not a great matchup for Minnesota given the circumstances that they were under. But I gotta give Kirk Cousins credit. I will be 110% honest. I was the biggest Kirk Cousins hater last year throughout the season. At the end of the year, I was the biggest Vikings hater because of the luck that they ran into. And I always, I did think firmly that Kirk Cousins, he wasn't as good as some people would like to say, and I do still believe that. But I've come around. For reasons like tonight. Tonight was a performance that I was very impressed with Kirk Cousins. He was fitting balls into windows that probably shouldn't have been fit. He was controlling, patrolling, and captaining the offense in the not 2-minute drill scenarios necessarily, but the drives where they're going no huddle and they're moving up the field at tempo. The tempo drives is what I'm trying to say. He was really patrolling the unit and doing a lot of it himself. And he was standing in the pocket. And this is something he's always done, and I never really give him credit for it. But he was standing in the pocket. He was taking hits. He was stepping up when he had to, and the pressure was coming off the edge. He wasn't getting rid of the ball too soon. He was standing in. He was delivering, and he was putting it and stamping it in the chest of his receivers when he needed to. He was sold a couple times. I think they ended up scoring on the drive that KJ Osborne dropped that crosser anyway. I don't recall. But Kirk played well tonight. I'm going to give Kirk his flowers for his performance. But here's the number that I was trying to find. So the Vikings, through the first three quarters, through each of the first three quarters in each game they played last year, had a point differential of a negative 87. And then in just every fourth quarter and overtime they played in, they had a point differential of plus 84. Now, I would imagine the comebacks that they had against like the Bills and the Colts probably really helped this number. But the fact that this is a real stat and the fact that this team managed to win 13 games, I have this team finishing, I think I had them at 7-10. And this is the exact reason why. I put some football thought into it, but sometimes it's as simple as sitting back and thinking, what does common sense say, or what does just the laws of life tell me to do here? And the laws of life were saying, you know what? The Vikings ran into every little bit of luck that they could have last year. They used all of their luck. If every team was hypothetically given a tube of luck every single 3 or 4 years, the Vikings used their tube of luck all last season. It's gone. It is entirely gone. And now this season, they have none of it anymore. And this is how my mind works. Call me stupid, call me an idiot, call me crazy. This is how my brain works. That tube of luck is gone. So I literally could have sat here and made my record predictions video and said, you know what? They used that tube of luck last season. They have no more luck in their tube. Therefore, they're going to suck. That's what I could have ended it off on. But obviously, I couldn't just say that. But that's really, to me, what it comes down to. They don't have it anymore. And these last 2 weeks have been a perfect example of that. I mean, last week was a game where, they were in a lot of games last year where they probably should have been winning by more points than they were. And the other team that they probably should have been killing was hanging around. And then near the end of the game, the Vikings made 1 or 2 plays that would swing the momentum back in their direction, and then they would be able to hold on. That game against Tampa last week, it was the opposite. They were trying to crawl back into it to make that final play at the end to steal the game that they should have won. They were unable to do it. This week, another example. Granted, they were certainly the underdog, but they tried to scratch and claw back, didn't get any bounces, and they were on the wrong end. They were on the wrong end. Buffalo Bills for life, man. How are you? How are you, man? Nice to see you in the comments section. Oh man, sorry. But yeah, I mean that's the long and short of it. I almost didn't even, and the low viewership makes sense because this game was so boring. This was quite literally the most boring 50-point game I think I've seen in my life. This was the most boring 50-plus point game I have seen probably in my entire life. I mean, Kirk threw for 365. It didn't feel like it. J Jets had 160 through the air. Didn't feel like it. Devontae Smith had 131 yards. I mean, you would think like there were fireworks going off and it was just an insane game. And the energy just felt so low. This is so true too. Like it just doesn't seem like energy is there when this game, when it's on Prime. I don't know if it's like the sound is suppressed of the crowd noise or like the hits aren't as amplified. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like I'm watching a snooze fest every time the game is on Prime. Maybe that's why we always think the games are terrible, because it's just like the ambiance or like the atmosphere is so just not there. Yeah, it's not. They do a very good job with all the fancy graphics, like showing the little icon with the arrow. Oh, here's the guy's name and how fast he ran on that given play or whatever bullshit they want to pull out with their analytics. They do a nice job with that stuff. But as far as like producing an entertaining and in-your-face product, I would give it every time CBS has Tony Romo. I love Tony Romo. He gets way too much hate. I think Tony Romo does an excellent job. Jim Nantz, Kevin Harlan, I think those guys kill it. But yeah, I feel bad for Al Michaels over here on Prime. I'm pretty sure that's who's over here. Hey, Robert, how you doing? He said, hey, K-Fan, I didn't see the game. How did Jalen play? So we'll talk about it real quick. To give you a quick recap, Robert, Jalen Hurts threw 23 times tonight, 193 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. My evaluation of Jalen Hurts is this is what I said earlier. It looked like Jalen Hurts to me looked like what Josh Allen has looked like since he lost Brian Dable. He didn't look comfortable. He didn't look like he was trusting his reads. He wasn't getting to the top of his drop and releasing the ball with on time. The play calling was suspect at times. It really did. That's what it reminded me of. The Bills offense and Josh Allen without Brian Dable was what the Eagles offense looked like without Shane Steichen and what Jalen Hurts looked like without Shane Steichen. The only difference was Jalen Hurts, despite looking lost and making bad decisions pretty often, was fortunate enough to have an offensive line and a run game to carry him the rest of the way. That's really the biggest difference. If it's not for the offensive line of Philadelphia, or let's say the poor defensive front of Minnesota, Minnesota could have turned the ball over 5 times, and I think they probably still win this game. I mean, if the Eagles couldn't run, they're screwed, man. If they couldn't run the ball, they're absolutely done for. They really are. They really, really are. Let's see if we can find some Jalen Hurts that we could talk about. I want to find that drive where he took that terrible sack. We could just go through all the memes. Jalen Hurts in prime time. I like how Bleacher Report's hyping it up. He didn't have a good game. I would give Jalen Hurts if I gave it a scale of 1 to 10, Jalen Hurts probably played like a 6 out of 10. Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like he's got the players around him, and that's exactly my point. When Jalen Hurts wasn't able to get comfortable and he looked like he was out of sync, the offensive coordinator, who is Brian Johnson, who is a first-year offensive coordinator, just like Ken Dorsey is, just like when the play calling gets bad for Ken Dorsey, the thing is he can't turn to a run game in an offensive line full of veterans to settle Jalen Hurts in or to just drive the offense through that group. The Bills don't have that. When Josh Allen's getting out of whack, Ken Dorsey really can't turn to this monstrous run game that can run for over 200 yards, quite literally run for over 200 yards and just take over the game for Jalen Hurts. He didn't have to do very much. One of Jalen Hurts' passes went for 60 yards tonight to Devontae Smith, and that was 61. That was a third of his passing yards. That one ball to Devontae Smith, and it was quite frankly not a good ball. He underthrew him. What's this one here? Oh no, this is the touchdown pass. I want to find the True. Here's a good example. So here we have Jalen Hurts on a 3rd and 16. This is a good example of what we were seeing from Jalen Hurts pretty much all night, except he didn't throw the ball. I think Jalen Hurts was spooked after he threw this.
Man.
So here we have Jalen Hurts in a 3rd and 16 situation. He's going to have all the time in the world. There's only 4 pass rushers coming back at him. What the Vikings were doing was just sending a minimal amount of pass rushers, hoping that Philadelphia wasn't going to run the ball and forcing Jalen Hurts to throw into coverage or run. And when he ran, he wasn't too successful. This was early on in the game. This is early in the first half. And Jalen Hurts drops back, and he's got all the time in the world. He's going to try and force a ball, and I don't know if he didn't see the linebacker or whoever that is underneath, but he gets picked off. After this play specifically, we didn't see Jalen Hurts really make too many throws down the field. He made the couple to Devontae Smith, but otherwise, I think he got a little bit timid when it came to throwing balls into pockets on time. It seemed like he got spooked. It seemed like he got a little bit spooked.
3rd and 4.
This was a nice pressure. He's got pressure in his face. This was probably his best throw of the night, I would say. They actually send 5 for once. The guy's right in his face. Hurts stands in and delivers just, right in stride. It was a busted coverage, to be fair. If it wasn't busted coverage, it probably isn't that easy and probably gets broken up, to be honest. But still a good ball. Not going to take that away from him. That's the touchdown again. They, of course, scored 2 touchdowns on the tush sneak, which should not have been talked about being banned, which was a ridiculous conversation to begin with. This was another good ball. This was the Jalen Hurts I was waiting to see. This play right here, Jalen Hurts rolling out right, and he just makes a nice throw on the run and fits it right toward the sideline to A.J. Brown. This was the type of stuff we were seeing from Philadelphia on a week-to-week basis. This week it just wasn't there. This was the one time where I was like, yeah, that's what Philadelphia typically is doing. This got called back for an offensive holding. This would have also won me $50, but of course it got called back, and then I needed 7 more Jalen Hurts passing yards for the rest of the game, and he couldn't hit 200. So now I'm very bitter about that as well. I'm trying to find. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts was studying some Josh Allen film this week. That's not funny. That's not funny. Man. This game was 27-7 at one point as well, and I'll touch on that in a second. But I want to be able to find that ball he underthrew to Devontae Smith. It doesn't look like I'm going to find it. Man. That's okay. But yeah, let's go back to the ESPN tab real quick. So here we have the play-by-play. I'm going to go back to my main point of this video. My biggest takeaway from this game. This game at one point was 27-7 in favor of Philadelphia. This was with 1:35 left, or that's the time of the drive. Excuse me. 10:54 left in the third quarter. They are up by 20 points. And you would think at this point, this was after that big Devontae Smith touchdown. It seemed like the game was over at this point. And, I'm not going to say it was, but it really felt like this was the true kill shot. But we soon found out why that wasn't the case, because all it took was one touchdown by Minnesota, a quick touchdown, a touchdown that took what? A little over 2 minutes, 10:54 to 9:50, a little under 2 minutes. Yep. A drive that took a little under 2 minutes that puts them down by 13. And then they force a punt. Pass right to Goddard, offensive holding, pass right to Swift, penalty on Swift, false start, Goddard 2 yards. Yeah. So when the Eagles weren't running the ball, Jalen Hurts was timid. Jalen Hurts was standing in the pocket with a lot of time, and he didn't know what to do. He was nervous. Wasn't taking chances, and this was a drive that was a good example of that led to a punt. This is where the Vikings really had their chance to get back into it. They end up going 3 and out. This was their chance. If they score on this drive, this game is probably theirs. They forced another punt. This was the drive that I thought Jalen Hurts looked the worst on. and he really didn't do much at all. Like, he actually did minimal. Let's see if we can find the sack here. Okay, here we go. So here, I think I found it. So this is the 3rd and 5. Excuse me. Or wait, is this it? Is this it? This is the first quarter. Let's see if this is still a good example. I don't remember what this play is. Here we have a 3rd and 5. This was after he threw that interception, mind you. And this was the play call from Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson looked like a first-year play caller today. He definitely did. Early in the game, he was doing a lot of questionable shit. That was a good example of it. I want to find that drive where he took that terrible, terrible, terrible sack. Here we go. So I think I found it. So this is just, there's no excuse for this. So here we have, absolutely. I think the play call, I think it was a combination of the offensive coordinator and the quarterback not really being on the same page. The play calling just being a little bit iffy. This offense definitely looked out of whack. Out of whack is the best way to put it. Here's a good example of what I'm talking about. So we don't have the all-22, so I'm not going to be able to tell what's down the field. But here we have Jalen Hurts in a 3rd and 23 situation. Mind you, Jake Elliott already hit a 61-yarder in this game, so this is still in his range. Jalen Hurts has 3 pass rushers coming at him, and he's standing behind the best offensive line in football, and he's going to have all day to throw. He's going to bounce. Hold on. No, that wasn't the one. It was the one before that. He took a sack right before this, too. He took 2 sacks in a row. But like I said, he's got 3 pass rushers coming at him behind the best offensive line in football. He's going to try and roll out. He's going to get grabbed, and he's going to go down. I mean, you just can't get sacked in a situation. Granted, I wouldn't say that's all his fault necessarily, but you're
3rd and 23 now.
If anything, step up. I don't know. It was 3 rushers and a spy. I'm going to find a sack right before that.
Like the Neil Hunter, 9th year.
Because that was the one that was really bad. Here it is. Okay. This was the one that was the worst. So here we have a 2nd and 20. This was after a hold, I believe, right? This was after a hold. Jalen Hurts is going to drop back. Once again, only 3 pass rushers with a spy in the middle, I believe. And he's got all day. Still all day. And then finally, when he goes to make his move, that's when the spy and then, of course, one of the pass rushers gets free and he gets brought down trying to get away. This is unacceptable. You have a 2nd and 20, and then, of course, he gets sacked again, which knocked him out of field goal range. You can't do this. This is inexcusable. You're in a 13-point game. A field goal makes it a 16-point game. You need to understand where you are in the field. This needs to be your read. If you don't like anything else, this is what I mean. Jalen Hurts was indecisive. We don't have the all-22 yet, but I can guarantee you at one point or another, somebody turned their back to a defender, boxed someone out for a second, and he could have stamped it on their chest. Not sure what the progression looked like. Not sure what the actual primary read was here. But the long and short of it is there was something. Jalen Hurts didn't take it because he was waiting for something to be so open that he was so confident to throw it, and he never found that. And then what did he do? He tried to rely on what he does best, and he gets taken down to the ground. You can't do that. 3 pass rushers behind the best offensive line in football. You can't do that. Oh man, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it. I think we did actually come across a a view of what he was seeing on that drive. Let's see if I can find it real quick. In college, he had trouble with a sense of urgency. He always seems too calm. Yeah, I mean, I think tonight he was just nervous. He didn't trust his reads. He wasn't, throwing on time. everything was just kind of improvision or dump offs because he wasn't trusting what he was seeing downfield. Once he threw that pick early on in the game, he wasn't throwing anything intermediate. He was not throwing with timing. He threw maybe one or two balls to guys that just turned their back out of the break or turn their hands out of their break. He really was timid and just unsure, uncertain, and timid was Jalen Hurts tonight. He plays. All right, hold on. I'm going to find this play for us. I'm going to find this play because I want to show it. All right. It was probably at what mark? He took that sack at the 12:50 mark of the fourth quarter. So it's probably going to be about here. Oh, perfect. We are right there. Okay, here we go. Okay, we got it. I'm quick like that. All right, ready? So this is that exact sack that we just were looking at.
Philadelphia, they just keeping the ball away from
first and 20 here.
That was good.
Or no, this is when.
Watched that time, and he was a little.
Is this when he got sacked? Oh man, maybe I'm throwing. Hold on. What happened? What happened on this
slow
one?
getting up for a flag.
Oh no, another. Okay, there was another incompletion. No flag. Okay. And there's a commercial. They should really have the all 22 come out right away. I pay like $100 fucking for this shit, and I have to wait 24 hours for the all 22. Fuck you. Okay, here we go. Here's the sack. God damn it. So he takes the sack. We saw the sack 4 times already. I don't need to replay it. I'm pretty sure they show. Okay, so this is what I wanted to see.
Look at the top here.
Here we have. Here what we have is he's looking, he's scanning, he's looking over the middle of the field. Right there. That's where this ball needs to go. Right here. Why he didn't throw this, he knew what his progression was. He knew what he was looking for because he didn't look away from it. But for some reason, he didn't feel comfortable throwing it. Why was this ball not thrown? This was the timid Jalen Hurts we saw tonight. This was the Jalen Hurts that, to me looked like just out of sync with this play caller, just not trusting what he was saying. Yep, that's what I was waiting to find.
Yeah, rushing green, dropping 8. Look at
just watch his eyes too. I want this to go away.
Who had a big rush early on? Pretty quiet.
Okay, watch his eye. Just watch Jalen Hurts' eyes here.
Yeah, rushing green, dropping 8. Look at the top
snap.
Of the screen.
He's looking right here.
2, 3, 4.
He's looking there. I mean, he is quite literally locking eyes with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert flashed his hands because he thought he was going to get it. And then he pumped. He even pumped.
Back there.
I don't know. Not a good game.
Underneath.
Not a good game. Not a good one from Hurts. And then he takes the sack and then knocked out of field goal range, which was huge. I mean, it really gave the Vikings life and a chance to drive back into it. There was a defender. But we're talking about an NFL quarterback here. This ball can easily be zipped into that area. That's a throw that I think Jalen Hurts can very, very, very easily make. And if he can't, there's a problem.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I mean, if he can't zip that in, that's a problem. Like this to me is pretty standard throw and catch. Goddard's flashing his hands. I mean, to me, that's pretty standard throw and catch to me. And you're in a 2nd and 20. It's not like you're in a 3rd and 20 and you're down by a touchdown and you desperately need the first down. Should have taken it. Hit all day. Snap the pass. What did this time end up being?
There, take away the underneath. Eventually, there's a receiver.
8.99. When he hit the ground. 8.9 seconds.
Up, but Jalen Hurts
ultimately with the ball in his hands. Can't be doing it. Let's look at some of Kirk real quick. Probably that's pretty much what sum up my final thoughts. Just Jalen looked out of sync with his new play caller, and they were able to lean on their veteran offensive line, their solid run game, win in the trenches, and beat a Minnesota Vikings team that ultimately shot themselves in the foot with all the turnovers. It's pretty much the long and short of it. Let's see if we can find some Kirk Cousins throws because he deserves some love. He deserves some love for the night. Oh, yeah, that ball to Jordan Addison was beautiful. Excuse me. Wow, here's a good stat. Here's an interesting stat, and this is the opposite of what Jalen was doing. Kirk Cousins threw 4 touchdown passes in rhythm, 2.5 to 4 seconds against the Eagles, tied for the most such touchdowns in a game in the next-gen stats era. This is what we call on time, in rhythm, as next-gen stats specifies. This is what we call in rhythm, on time, in sync. That was Kirk tonight, even when he was under pressure, even when he knew guys were screaming down his throat, even when he knew he had no offensive line in front of him, even when he knew his run game wasn't going to go anywhere. He still stood in there like a warrior, like a champ. We don't need to watch that one. That was just a throw up one-on-one ball. What do we got here?
3rd and 9.
I mean, that was even a nice throw. Here we have Jalen Carter swimming past the guard.
Defensive line.
Watch Jalen Carter just absolutely smoke this poor guard, man. Oh, yeah. I mean, he didn't even do anything. He just swam right over him. Kirk stands in, quick release. To me, that looks like it hits Osborne in the hands, which was not the first time that it did, and he dropped it.
3rd and 9.
Would have been an insane catch, but regardless. What's this one here?
Come on, Asai.
What do we got here? Kirk once again standing in under pressure. Holy fuck. Oh, my God. I mean, that's the last thing that can happen to you playing this position. Did he trip? Like, he had to have gotten off balance. Yeah, I think he just, like, started to stumble trying to get over to Sweat. And then somehow Kirk stands in and just flips it. I mean, that just can't happen. Oh, my God. How does Kirk get that ball so beautifully to Jefferson? It's not like obviously an insane pass or anything, but to just stand there and take that and flip it to Jefferson on the run. Poor guy got murdered tonight. Poor guy got absolutely obliterated. What that stat say? Oh, it's just his numbers. Did Hockenson have 2 touchdowns? I think he did, actually. Shit. All right, here was the fumble. I mean, there's nothing he really could have done. How many times can he get smacked in the game? Jordan Addison touchdown. That's the first score of the game. He made a couple insane throws pretty late in the game. Let's see if I can find. I want to find the one that I thought was probably his best throw of the day. And I fast forward right to it. Check out this ball.
2nd down and 5.
Check out this ball. This is what I'm talking about. If Jalen Hurts couldn't make that pass we were just looking at, and Kirk can make this, then one is an NFL quarterback and one is not. Check this out.
Cousins, little shoulder shake, throws, caught Jefferson.
Hold on. We got to see this. We got to see this without the pause button on screen. Look at this.
Cousins, little shoulder shake.
Oh, my God. I mean, that is gorgeous. That was probably his best ball.
Covers going to
and that time.
put on.
That was probably his best ball. Just absolutely gorgeous ball from Kirk. Threading the needle. All right. It's probably my final thought on the game. Like I said, Kirk played great, I thought. Considering the circumstances, I think Kirk deserves a lot of credit. His team didn't help him out tonight. The offensive line, due to injury and just playing a good opposing defensive front, got smothered. They couldn't run, and they turned the ball over a ton, and Philadelphia took advantage of that. Barely took advantage of that and just, played their game. That's your score. That's your score. 34-28. Philly goes to 2-0. Vikings drop to 0-2. And yeah, that's all I have to say on the game. If you guys are interested in betting on some player props, go over to Sleeper Picks. Sign up using my code CAVE. It helps me out a lot. You get a 100% deposit match. You put in 20, you get 40. You put in 40, you get 80, etc. Link to sign up for that is down in the description in my LinkTree at the top of my LinkTree. But yeah, that's about all I have to say. I'll be back for the live stream following the post-game Sunday night game. So I'll see you there for that. And I'll see you fucking later. Go Bills. Fuck. Man,